Now for the highly requested video, Simgot Super Mix 4, a quad bridge IEM, 1 DD, 1 BA, 1 planar, and 1 PCT coming in at $150. Looking to take the throne away from another well-known IEM that's tuned pretty similar to this. We'll get into all of that and more coming up next. Hey friends, Timmy here, welcome back to another video on Giz Audio, and the other IEM I was referring to is of course the Truthears Nova, because as you can see, they're both going for a Harman-like signature. So in this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Super Mix 4 and comparing it mainly to the Nova itself. So let's start off with the tuning first. This has the classic Harman clean lower mid-range, great instrumental separation, highlighting in the upper mid-range and the treble. So you get a lot of really clean vocal presentation and clean detail presentation as well. Now the downside to Harman Tune IEM is also in the Super Mix 4 as well, being that it doesn't really have a lot of lower mid-range. So male vocals, bass guitars, and any instruments that rely on a bit of richness to sound alive is kind of pushed back in the background a bit in the Super Mix 4. And the lack of lower mid-range also affects the bass presentation as well. And although the Super Mix 4 does have a really fun thumpy bass, the bass decay is on the faster side. Like it just decays and goes away a little too quickly. It's not the most natural sounding thing, but it's still a fun sounding bass. There's definitely enough volume there, but I wouldn't consider this to be bass head level, if you will. It's definitely a Harman Tune IEM first, which means the bass is going to be on the clean side and more focused on the upper mid-range and the treble. Now speaking of treble, this is where the Super Mix 4 is going to be a hit or miss depending on what you like. The treble here is on the a lot side. Now it's not really overly peaky or piercing to my ears, it's just the quantity of the treble is quite a lot. Now there's a good side and a bad side to this. The good side is that it highlights more micro nuances. Those of you who like treble micro nuances might find the Super Mix 4 to have quite an abundance of it. A lot and really transparent because you can hear it right up in center sometimes. But if you're more sensitive to treble, you might find the Super Mix 4 to be too bright, too much, the details too in your face, maybe a little bit too harsh in the timbre as well. All those pros and cons are valid because treble area is an area where we find the most deviation in taste out of every other frequencies. The Super Mix 4 is definitely not on the safer side of treble, so that's gonna be a big love for some, while some might find it too much. Speaking of details and technical performance, let's bring up my scale right here, and I would say the Super Mix 4 lands right behind the B3, which is a very high placement considering the price tag of only $150. Now the Super Mix 4 did sacrifice some naturalness to achieve this higher level of perceived technical performance, and the best example of this is again in the timbre. It's just not going to be a natural decay when the treble is boosted that much. Now on the topic of if it's going to be too unnatural for you or not is highly subjective to each ear, because like I said again, treble is where you find the most amount of deviation in preferences. Next is the comparison segment, and the only IEM I want to compare the Super Mix 4 to is the Truthears Nova. They're both going for that Harman-like signature. They're both the same price, so which one should you buy? In my initial testing of the Super Mix 4, I did prefer it over the Nova, and I still do, though to a lesser degree than my first initial impressions. Now the one good thing about the Super Mix 4 that I like over the Nova is that it sounds more exciting. It doesn't sound as smooth over. It highlights more micro nuances that I feel like give music that bit of extra life and excitement. The other thing I like more on the Super Mix 4 is the size of the shell. It is smaller, it fits my ear better, whereas the Nova is on the larger side, and I know a lot of people had issues with that. So if you have smaller ears, the Super Mix 4 is going to be a way better fit for you. Now on the Nova camp, the one thing I like more in the Nova is the timbre. The timbre is just safer, you can say, but also more natural sounding. It doesn't have the same excitement as the Super Mix 4, but it is just more natural sounding. Sounds more pleasing to me, easier to listen to. So yes, in summary, if you want something more exciting, you like a lot of details, and you're not sensitive to treble, then the Super Mix 4 is a really good choice. But if you want a more natural listen overall, then the Nova is still a really good choice. And I know some of you guys want me to compare the Super Mix 4 to the EM10, which I have right here. I will save that for the EM10 review, but for now, let's jump into final rating for the Super Mix 4. At $150, if you like Harman-like tuning, it's a great IEM. Now, it's not a big green thumbs up for me, only half green, because it's not a really safe buy if you're more sensitive to treble. It's definitely something that I recommend people demo first if possible, especially if you're sensitive to the treble area, like I said. But all in all, same grade as the Nova, and yeah, I guess that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, bye.